Already today in the lecture hall this morning, and I just want to elaborate on what my platform looks like and give you some more information about who I am. So, my name is Gabriel Goodman. Again, I'm a fourth year student of history and economics, and I think having a background in history is really useful in this sort of general advocacy position because this is one of the oldest educational institutions in the country, and there's a ton of things that go on here that span histories that go way back into the 60s, way back to the foundation of the foundation year, and all sorts of things that, you know, as a history nerd, I've been studying for a long time, and so this position of member at large is really important because it's both an advocacy position for all of you, but it's also an accountability position. And I think both of these things are kind of wrapped in together and fold back in on each other. Because in order to be an advocate, you have to be listening to our community. And in order to hold people accountable, you have to be bringing people's opinions forward. So you have to be doing both of those things at the same time. And so I've been engaged in student politics for a long time, and I've spent a lot of time getting to know the King's community and getting to know different parts of it and collecting all sorts of varied opinions on what the KSU should be doing and thinking about. And so stuff like, and so yeah, like we, of course, one of the major problems this year is increases in tuition. And this has been an issue ever since 2011 when the tuition freeze went off. And of course we're all opposed to it, but we really have to start looking to means outside of the King's community in order to keep tuition down. Right now we don't have a president who is willing to stand up to government and say, give us more money. Every time we've gone to the administration has said, we're gonna deal with the budgetary, we're gonna solve this problem through our own budget, we're not gonna go to government for more money. When in fact, it was a 10% decrease in funding to post-secondary education that caused this problem in the first place. So we really need to start mobilizing with other universities, there are other social movements in the city. We can be doing a lot more in Halifax. If we look at Quebec, there are students just struck on Saturday or Sunday, was it? In solidarity with labor movements. So all of our struggles here are tied back into solving problems at the federal and provincial levels. So that's sort of a general advocacy position. But here at King's, in order to get things like a president who's willing to confront government, we have to do some serious thinking about how our school is administered. Right now, we have one of the largest board of governors in the entire country. We have 32, I believe, members of our board of governors. UBC, with 30,000 students, has 16, half the number. We don't have open board meetings at this school. We can't go and hear what the board of governors are talking about when they're making decisions. We have problems like facilities isn't represented on the Board of Governors and therefore has no say in how this school is administered. We have to fix all of these problems. We have a frankly unnecessary amount of co-opted members on our Board of Governors, and it really what this looks like in a practical level is it makes it possible for the administration to make decisions unilaterally. And we're seeing that right now with, you know, a proposal of a $1,000 fee increase with, you know, very little consultation on the part of the administration towards us. So if we're ever going to be able to solve problems like that and freeze and eventually decrease the cost of education at this institution, we have to start looking at the way we are being governed. Okay, so many words on this piece of paper. Yeah, so let's see where I got with that. Oh, so my time's almost done. But yeah, so thank you very much for listening to me today. I really hope that you both believe that I, have researched these topics quite extensively, and that I'm also, of course, willing to listen. And I've always wanted to be approachable and a friendly person in this community. So thank you very much.
Hi everybody, my name is Brennan. I'm a first-year student in the foundation year program, and I'm also running to be your member at large this year on the KSU Council. Before I go into my platform, a little bit about me, I would like to thank you all for coming. It's just so awesome to see so many people here engaged in the politics of this school. So thank you for coming, thank you for listening. So my speech will sort of be divided into three main sections. First, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what the member at large will do on the KSU Council. I'll then talk a little bit about my platform. And then finally, I'll tell you about why I think that I'm the right person to be this representative for you this year. So first, a little bit about the member at large. The member at large is an interesting position on the KSU Council because unlike, say, the arts rep or the first year rep, the member at large does not have a specific constituency group of students to respond to. Instead, they represent the interests of the union membership as a whole. And additionally, the member at large must hold all other elected councillors and elected exec members to account in what they do on council, making sure that the entire union is represented in the day-to-day goings-on of the KSU. So for me, what I take this to mean is that the member at large, perhaps more than any other elected position, must be an active listener to the voices of all students, and particularly students who come from an underrepresented or equity-seeking background. So I will make it a priority, if elected, to make myself as accessible as possible to all students beyond regular office hours, so that any student, particularly one who does not perhaps feel represented on the KSU now, can come to me, talk to me, and have their voice be heard on this governing body. Because I know a lot of us have probably experienced the King's community as one that is very open and accepting and just really, really wonderful. However, that being said, having such a tight-knit community, we run the risk of excluding people who may not see themselves as an easy fit. And it's for this reason that I think that we should definitely prioritize the voices of underrepresented and equity-seeking students. Furthermore, I think it would be remiss of me to overlook the fact that we, both as individual students as well as members of this university community as a whole, are in a time of financial uncertainty. We're all experiencing the effects of rising tuition and fees. This university is experiencing the effects of decreasing enrollment and decreasing provincial funding. So I will make it my absolute top priority to serve as a voice for the interests of students, particularly the interests of students that are related to financial concerns. This means speaking out against any budgetary measure that may threaten the student experience here at King's. This means speaking out against any budgetary measure from any level of government, be it the administration here, the provincial government, that will make our education here less accessible than it already is. And finally, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and why I think I would be a great fit for this position. I know I am in my first year at King's, however, my love of this school and my appreciation of its politics have extended past the 4 weeks that I've been here. I've long been following the goings-on of the KSU. I think King's is really cool, and I would love to represent it. Furthermore, in high school, I was involved with organizations, both within my school and outside of it, that dealt directly with issues of representation. I'm very passionate about LGBTQIA+ representation. I'm very passionate about sustainability. And I'm a very driven and enthusiastic and hopefully personable person that would love to get to know all of you. So in conclusion, I would just like to say that I think I would be a great member at large for you all because I would bring your interests to the table, particularly if you feel you are not already being heard. It's an honor to be here to speak in front of you. I'd be humbled to have your vote, and thank you so much for your time.
To that role in terms of making council as accessible as possible, like, and what you want to do with live blogs, stuff like that.
Gave you an
Okay. Well, I'm, a liberal arts academic student. I've been writing stuff for a long time, and I think it's, important to really distribute it as widely as possible, which means through all sorts of social media. The question was about accessibility?
Yeah, accessibility of council in general.
Accessibility of council in general. Yeah, well, there has been in the past, there are definitely people who have been involved with politics more and more, they go for positions, and then there are other parts of our community that you know, I take all of my classes at Dow right now, and there's, you know, like a huge percentage of people at King's who don't really spend any time here. They go here, but they take all of their classes at Dow, and they don't really have access to that. So I think it's really important that we work very closely. We follow very closely things that are going on at Dow as well in order to make the KSU attractive for our entire community, because we're buffeted by a lot of ways by forces that are going on at Dow and in the entire city. And it's very important that we broaden the focus so that people really have a lot of context for what's going on at council.
I guess I sort of have a two-pronged approach to this question. The first thing that I would suggest is that I myself have looked at the live blog before, and perhaps just because of the speed at which things must be transcribed, sometimes things like acronyms are used, or initialisms or something like that. And if you're coming from a position where you might not be super familiar with council to begin with, it can be sort of difficult to follow along with those acronyms. Like, for example, when I first looked at the live blog, I was like, oh, EVP, what is that? And later it was clarified that it was the external vice president, but I think that that could perhaps be a barrier to people understanding. And as well, to perhaps make the live blog a little bit more appealing to students, I think it would be cool to bring in some humor. And to maybe, not like explicit planned out jokes, but like if something happens that could like, and of course council is a very serious thing, but to make it just a little bit more fun to read for students so that they would want to follow along every second Sunday.
Next question. I have a question for Kate, so okay. Kind of we made broader so that Brennan can answer.
Potentially.
Okay, you ask it, I'll find one.
Great, okay. Kate, I heard a lot of research and background about what is currently going on in student movement in general at King's in your speech. What I didn't hear a lot of was, what are you specifically going to do as member at large with the capacities that the member at large has to change what's going on?
Yeah, right. Well, I think we need a two-pronged approach, and the KSU has been really focused in using the mechanisms of change that are institutionally in place already, the consultation process, the various committees and so on. But we are outvoted on a lot of committees, and we're ignored in a lot of consultations. And I mean, I know a lot of you are first-year students, but like you remember we're paying for the gym that they built at Dow, way down. It's some other part of the city that we're never going to use. It's the Sexton campus. That's right. We didn't want to pay it, and we told them we didn't want to pay it. We were frankly ignored, and that happened in my first year, and it's happened a lot of times since. So I think we need to both continue using those mechanisms, but I'm an activist. I'm interested in actions. I'm interested in mass movements. We need to be doing things, we need to be doing actions outside of the traditional mechanisms in order to put pressure on the administration of this institution, because frankly, how are we going to get them to vote against their own interests to open the board meetings? It's not going to happen unless we put pressure on them and really show student solidarity and student strength.
You know, Brennan.
Yes.
Do you have any ideas outside of the King's campus in regards to social movements to make the members of the King's student movement less better?
Well, I know that last year the KSU was an integral part of the Day of Action that was held here with regards to increasing tuition and fees in universities and decreasing provincial funding. I think that continuing actions such as that one, as well as actions within the King's community itself, could be really beneficial to one, sort of show other governing bodies beyond that of this university that students here are passionate and that we care and that we want our education to be accessible would be a really great thing to continue to do.